Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Wild Card. I am one half of the Wild Card, Kendal Mans. As y'all can see, it's just me today. One thing about my man Khalil, he is always good to get sick. Every 5 to 10 business days. So, as y'all can see, he's not here. It's just me, and I wanted to do something, real quick. Make a quick little video to talk about a topic that I've been, pretty passionate about the past couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know, I was on Inside Morgan Sports talking about this topic of why HBCU players weren't drafted into the NFL. This show was last week. The show is for Morgan State University. Obviously, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, so Morgan State. It's just a really, a couple minutes away. So I definitely wanted to kind of bring this conversation to the podcast and to get y'all impressions of it as well. As I kind of run through, my reasons for why I think it's the case. But first, before I get to that, make sure that y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Follow the podcast on all of our social media platforms. We got X, we got Instagram, we got TikTok, and we also got Facebook at Wildcard2K. And if y'all feeling generous, make sure y'all donate to the Cash App, $Wildcard2K. That money goes directly to, paying for StreamYard, paying for Patreon, all of those type of things, and, producing more content that y'all want to see. Let me know what y'all want to see in the comments down below, and let me know why y'all think HBCU players are not getting drafted into the NFL draft. And without further ado, let me get into it. So I believe it's a couple of reasons why HBCU players aren't getting drafted into the NFL. One reason I believe is due to competition. That is not to say that HBCU players are not competitive and are not talented. I shout out to HBCU Game Day. I listened to an interview with Raymond Boone from last year. Raymond Boone is a former Bowie State DB, and he was also a UDFA for Washington last season. And he basically compared it he basically put it like this. If I play a team, or if I get 3 interceptions against Livingstone, and then get 3 interceptions versus Georgia, the game at Georgia, the performance at Georgia is going to mean more, is going to be a more, I guess, it's gonna be a bigger performance in a lot of people's eyes, especially scouts. And I think the reason why he said that is because the competition level that you'll see in the NFL is more comparable to Georgia than it is against Livingstone. That's not to downplay Livingstone, but obviously Georgia produces a lot of NFL players and is one of the best teams in the country, best programs in the country. So that's one reason, because of competition. The second reason I believe is due to the lack of exposure that these HBCU players are getting. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, they have the HBCU Legacy Bowl, they have the HBCU Combine. How much more exposure do they need? My question to that is, I'll answer that question with a question. When does the HBCU Combine and the HBCU Legacy Bowl take place? At the end of February. When is the NFL draft? At the end of April. That gives you a 2 to 3 month window for, say, you ball out, you go to the combine, you go to the Legacy Bowl. None of the scouts really know you. You're kind of an unknown. You ball out, you have great stats at the combine, great measurements, all of that. You ball out at the Legacy Bowl. Even if you do ball out, it probably won't be enough to get you drafted, because 2 to 3 months just isn't enough time. I mean, we all know, we see mock drafts before the season. We see mock drafts during the season. We see mock drafts after the season. All of this stuff, all of this work has been put into these draft mocks and all of that type of stuff. And you can't expect a scout or a GM to be like, okay, I've never heard of this player, but he balled out in this game against these guys, and his combine numbers were all right. I might spend a draft pick on him. I just don't feel like that's enough time. I feel like the Legacy Bowl and the Combine in a perfect world should be used as like a cherry on top for these players, not to be the whole cake. And that's my biggest issue with those entities. Not that they're not good things. I think they're great initiatives, and I'm glad that they're in place, but they cannot be the end all be all for these HBCU players. That's all I'm saying. So another thing that I heard, I was on a panel with a couple of OGs at Morgan. It was a sports agent. It was a couple of former players and Hall of Famers at Morgan State. And one of the things that they said was that we also, along with media exposure, which I brought up was media exposure. I think so. I guess that'll be the third thing. I think media exposure needs to be better. We need to start treating these players like they're stars before they're draft eligible. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just say, okay, this player might go to the draft, so we need to start pumping out content for them now. And, it's their senior year. I think we should do that beforehand. One of the things y'all can see this highlight, or y'all can see this video on our YouTube page. I made a highlight video for Keyshawn Johnson. He was a former wide receiver at Alabama State. He just transferred to Western Kentucky. So he was all SWAC. He was, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the SWAC conference, or in the SWAC. And I realized if I didn't take the onus to make that highlight tape for him, and if he didn't say that he wanted, I have no idea why that's happening. But you know, I mean, this is what you get, I guess. But like I was saying, if he didn't say, "Can somebody make me a highlight tape on Twitter or on X?" and if I didn't make the highlight tape for him and a couple other people, he wouldn't have had a highlight tape. And my thing with that is, a lot of these HBCU players that are dogs, that are balling out, don't have highlight tapes. It's a lot of guys that you'll see in the NFL draft have highlight tapes. It's a lot of guys that you'll see in the NFL draft that have all of this media attention on them. And I do think that plays a part. Does that play a whole? Does that play the entire part? Is that the entire piece that I'm saying? Like, okay, if this player doesn't have a tweet about them, if this player doesn't have this player doesn't have that, then he's not going to get drafted. No, that's not what I'm saying. I know that that's not everything, but I do think it's important in the process. So that was one thing that was also talked about. Another thing that was talked about is the amount of attention and exposure these players get, even on their own campuses. One thing I've been very adamant about, as I've been covering HBCU sports, as I have for 4 years now, is that we as fans have to do a better job of supporting our players on their campuses. I'm talking about, these players should not be playing in front of nobody. It's no way that should be the case. Another thing that I'll say is that these players should have, like, when's the last time? And I don't know every HBCU school store. I'm not going to claim I do. But when is the last time that you walked into an HBCU store and HBCU school store and seen a player's jersey with their name on it in the store? As far as I know, and I'm basing this off of Morgan and Alabama State because those are the only two that I know of, um, they don't have any. And so it's kind of like, are we taking these players as seriously as we're asking other people to take them? That's kind of something to think about. Now, do I think that is the sole reason as well that leads to the players not getting drafted? No, but I do think it's an interesting conversation. I want to preface, or I want to say, I think there are a lot of HBCU players that are very talented. I've been privileged to see, different players play this game that played under the HBCU banner. Keyshawn Johnson, Keenan Isaac, Davius Richard, Aubrey Miller, um, Akil Glass, all of these different players. And I believe that these players deserve an opportunity to play at that next level. Keenan Isaac and Mikey or Mickey Victor are perfect examples. Mickey Victor, I mean, he's a UDFA for the Patriots right now, and he's doing his thing. He is doing his thing. Make sure y'all check out that name. I mean, that's a name that could be making some plays on Sunday. And he came out of Montgomery, Alabama State University. But there are so many talented players on these HBCU rosters, and it's still baffling to me how not only we can have zero players get drafted from HBCUs, but you also look at the UDFAs that are signed after the draft, and it's a good amount of HBCU players that are signed. That makes me think, okay, y'all know that these players are talented, but y'all don't believe in them enough to spend a draft pick on them. And I think that's kind of a central problem as well. The last example I'll say that was talked about on Inside Morgan Sports was that these players themselves or sometimes it's the owners, it's the GMs, it's the scouts. They don't really support HBCUs in the sense of saying they're not really interested in giving them tryouts or giving them interviews or whatever, workouts, whatever. And now I'm not saying, I'm not speaking from experience. I'm speaking from somebody who heard a sports agent that was on the podcast that has represented HBCU players in the past say some of these teams, this was for the NBA, but I'm sure there are cases in the NFL. Some of these teams just really don't support HBCU players the way that they should, and even giving them a shot. So, I said all of that to say, guys, I think it's a lot of reasons why HBCU players aren't getting drafted. Do I think it's fair? No, absolutely not. I definitely think that there is at least one HBCU player that deserves to get drafted in the I think 245 picks that are made at the NFL draft, and the fact that there's not is really, it's tough. It's tough to see, and I definitely think that things need to change because, like I said, it's some dogs at HBCUs, there's some dogs in HBCU land, and they deserve to get their shine. They deserve to play at the highest level. So, um, the last thing I'll say. I know I said that already, but the last thing I'll say about the competition aspect that I talked about earlier, I believe that money games, they do have their pros and their cons. I do believe that these players that have dreams of playing in the NFL need to play against NFL caliber competition, or at least teams that will be looked at as having multiple NFL players on their roster or future NFL players on their roster. Um, so I think that that's a discussion in and out of itself, discussion for another time that we would definitely have on this podcast if y'all want to. Now, I want to say thank y'all for tuning in to the pod, and let me know if y'all have any ideas of some content that we can make, and please let me know what y'all thoughts are about this topic. This is a topic that we could talk about for a long time. I wanted this to be kind of short so that way y'all could kind of digest it, and let me know what y'all think. So please let me know what y'all think. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Again, follow us on all of our socials at Wildcard2K. And if y'all feeling generous, donate to the Cash App at Wildcard2K, $ Wildcard2K, excuse me. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Let's hear some conversation in the discourse down below. And make sure that y'all stay blessed. Everybody have a good one. Peace. I'm out.